I stood in a crowd of white static and was forgotten. Small town turnout to honor essential workers and artists. The microphone cut off, held gently in a firm hand. Announcement made that the show is a wrap. No outright nefarious reasons, simply forgotten about. The poem meant to be read wasn't even about oppression. I wondered if it would have felt so significant if I weren't so pigmented, if I just so happened to look like the rest of the crowd. Year after year, day after day, seconds after seconds, canines multiply like rabbits in a springtime frenzy. 2 of them have found their way on my now saliva-lined sofa, sleeping soundly, sighing softly as they inhale safety and exhale their worry in the comfort of their stable home. She, named after an African country, Kenya, motherland, for her strength. He, named after a seminal word, Miko, chief, ruler of my heart. Both breeds considered a threat. The Mexican-born German in her, the fight in him, all existing in me. My Mexican gene seen as a threat to America, home of the brave and the drug-sniffing Latinx. The underdogs we all are, human, animal. I see these big magical beings as holy, like I see my brown skin, a reflection of earth, of soil, of how we are all multiplied in this world, how we start out as cells and blood, and there is no brownness or whiteness or fear in the beginning. How we all enter this world to a first breath, as science, as magic. How some of us go from there to needing to be rescued, from being discarded as nothings as others. How we then rescue each other. I never really expected to forgive myself for killing an animal in the dark of night. Rather, I expected to one day receive forgiveness from the buck himself, whose face I saw as if it were magnified by my vehicle suddenly when it struck him. The sound of metal shrinking into itself, a bright white light ingrained in my memory as if the moon came bursting down in an effort to save him from the catastrophe of what it is to be human. Invading the quiet, interrupting grace. Yes, another deer poem in the making, because across the way is a doe standing in a drought, reaching her tongue up to tree leaves. I want to be rid of confessions. Each step she takes, rings of water expand across the murky body that has exposed oak roots and hidden stones. I want to exist without guilt. I want to be her. A woman said to me, "Your eye sees the beauty," and I want to ask, why does it also see so much sorrow? Her sun yellow Afghan challenging me to find only joy. The doe is seeking refuge from the heat now, entangled in thin branches and ankle-deep water. So much depends upon the quiet she carries with her, how it reaches out to me. I try my best not to make a sound. What does it mean to sit on driftwood and not want to return to the ozone of disappearing? It's not as if I have nothing to return to, but there has been this bastard of a radiant vulture with an orange glowing halo following me like Jesus or the Reaper, and sage eyes like the loyal dog who would once jump when I turned over in my bed at night. I have no young, only discarded animals I save and love because there is a spirit in them, unhuman, better than human, that understands the redemption I keep trying my damnedest to acquire. I was asked why I never wanted to carry the weight of a child or an infant to breast, and I never answered with how I see it as my breasts not wanting to be touched, nor my body, nor my hair. How somehow along the way satin sheets and the feel of hands made me cringe. There are only 2 creatures that I fear encountering, my own fetus and the 2 snakes of deceit on the tarot card I pulled. And now I can't stop thinking about which door I will open to find 2 snakes staring me in the face or sinking fangs into my wrist with those iron-lung, slick necks. sinking fangs into my wrists, how they stand up straight and strike. But on the edge of the bluffs, the vultures fly across the sky with the ravens, and none of this matters. Sea salt dissolves the notion that I need to be anything more than alone. How did my bloodlines follow the spool and thread from the Central American regions of Chihuahua, Durango, Zacatecas, to California, where a population basks in sun rays, for their skin to resemble ours, how it has been naturally for years? The history of my family was never written down. The DNA test only resulted in blood. Poems didn't survive voyages from country to country, state to state. I won't ever know if my grandmother used ink for prose when she worked on migrant farms in Nebraska, or if my grandfather ever mailed letters during the war. It is true that Latino men fought for America, but they are denied credit, as if they only took and never gave. Imagine my ancestors blowing a horn into the wind with songs of their stories, singing me into spaces where I knew I'd belong without trying so hard. It has taken 34 years to define belonging, to walk into any given space and demand my existence be acknowledged. What is the word for I work my way to success and can never gain enough validation? Is it the Mexican way to have to work so hard that the backbone is eternally sore? Is it the Indian way to feel there can never be enough vigilance for self-protection? Then there's the Irish and the German percentages. And what I am is a melting pot of international navigation that has learned to always do. How can I steer the ship when people are tired of race and I'm only getting started? I stood in a crowd of white and was forgotten, and even the act of forgetting is an act of oppression. This thing comes as waves, unfailingly, in unison with florets of grass swaying on terra firma, purple needlegrass, melica, wild rye, field blades snake-like from intermittent zephyrs. Feel this to feel alive. I believe I was born into grief, somehow always knowing death was narrowly on the other side. I once woke my mother, 8 years old, crying, mourning for her death, afraid my father would use the weapon under his pillow on any given day. Home was not a safe spot to land in. Grass is a natural water collector. Even in summer, how it feels velvet, moist, an understated bed heaven for bare feet and consoling. California oat, greensheath sedge, native. So much in this life is a hardened surface. So much is unmoving, holds you still and stagnant from reaching well-being. I remember the darkest soil, the safest haven, the anura, the bullfrog, earthworm, annelida. There was no fear in the earth's cradle. I deer dance around words for wild grasses because they are easier to say aloud than to say abuse, to say hurt, to say wounded, to say that alone I am a little girl playing on a backyard trellis, avoiding the inside of a home I feared. A domestic legacy of hitting and shouting and demeaning. My legacy, a soft poem. This also has an epigraph by Victoria Chang. I can't ask him because on the other side there are no words. Obituary. March 18th, 2020. Father, Papa, Padre, absent. An obituary does not require fact. Suffered from many illnesses, omit drug use and domestic violence. Played multiple sports. Did the batter's swing give an advantage in how to backhand? He had a love for plants, worked hard as a landscaper, created gardens, built homes, erected Balnearia de los Romanos, painted daughters with bruises. An obituary does not require truth. Shattered both legs, 26 surgeries, dedicated to supporting his family, post-divorce ×3 not included. Fishing was his passion. Eat what you kill, do not kill the dogs, but beat them when they don't learn. He could tell you and show you anything and everything there was to know, overcoming his abuse the exception. He was always about family and loved gatherings. He loved all of his children more than anyone will ever imagine and would do anything for each and every one of them, including reject them. He had the biggest heart and broke mine and broke bodies. In the end, his wife was not my mother. In the end, I'd rather be nameless. I say fresh-cut zinnia and basil sit in tap water before me. I say maidenhair, lush and bottle green sit on a wooden pedestal. I say bright, colorful plants adorn my home because I love variegation. And once I step outside, my own color is not always seen. Someone asks me, "What are you?" I don't say, "What the hell do I look like? I'm human." I politely state, I am Mexican, I am Mojave, I was born here, if you're wondering. I do not say I am on my own homeland, I am rooted in bloodshed. This land is my land. I say snake plant, spider plant, a piece of moss-covered oak wood. I say I am closer to these entities than any other humans. I say I can list pretty things and still can't determine if what I say really matters. I'm leaving out the significance. The white page is distracting. It's not that I have a problem with criticism, but when the poet who only wrote about figs and fountains told me I needed to remove myself from the content of my poetry, I thought of the perfect response a day later. The page is a mirror and I need to see myself, to know the kind of damage that was done over time, to turn it into a canvas that repaints itself into a new kind of daylight. The problem is not that I placed myself on a pedestal or that I care whether or not you're vaccinated. But when I open social media to find someone else's depression, to get away from my own, I see that 2 more have died from COVID in my small town. The lovely residents of this lakeside town are the first to lay claim to their rights, to say they were going to die anyway. Where is their mirror? Maybe they need a poem. I think of my grandmother who one moment in her vanishing mind thought she was a 20-year-old dancer again, attempting to gallop down convalescent halls with her male nursing assistant. The next minute, she is taking her last shallow breath alone, not knowing she is a victim of a pandemic, that no one was allowed to hold her hand, that her fiancé was raging outside the nursing home, blaming me for the doors being locked. Yes, she would have died anyway, but who is to say it was her time? I heat water, add lemon slices, bergamot, honey from star thistle, remedy for grief or in the least a racing heart. Yesterday was a loss, today, tomorrow. Someone tells me, read a book for your grief. Maybe it will help. I write a list of recent deaths: sister, dog, father, cat, grandmother, friend, land, trees, oceans, bits of myself, the tasting of ash, the anti-citrus, the taste of sweetness to live. A book won't tell me how to plant my feet in the roots of mud, refuse to be pulled down. Thank you very much.